So this weekend I took part in a game jam called Trijam. It's a small game jam that's held every weekend in which you only have 3 hours to make a game. The jam lasts the whole weekend and you can choose when to work on your game as long as you stick to the 3-hour limit. I like that this was a bit more relaxed than other game jams. It's a great option when you feel like doing one but you don't really want to commit a whole weekend to it. The theme for this one was trees. Since the 3 hours only count when you're making the game, I went on with my day having the theme in the back of my mind. I came up with a few concepts like a platformer in which you're a tree, playing as a lumberjack, and something to do with roots and branches, but in the end I went with my first idea, a game in which you can have your own little bonsai tree and care for it. The idea at first was to have 3 different trees and you would need to take care of all 3 of them at the same time. The goal wasn't to make it stressful, but rather make it a mindful little experience. I started writing all the actions the player could do and the events that would affect the tree, like needing water, needing pruning, being infected by bugs, etc. However, before I started making the game, I started doubting I would be able to include 3 different trees in 3 hours. So I decided to cut it to 1 tree, and if I had extra time, I could look into adding the other 2. This was probably the smartest and most important decision I made during this jam. Keeping a tight scope is the most helpful thing I learned by doing jams. Even when you think your idea is small enough and perfectly achievable, it probably isn't and you need to cut a few more features. Anyway, now that I had a concept I was happy with and a small enough scope, I fired up Gate and started working on the game. I started by drawing all the main assets and drawing the UI on the screen. Then I added the controls for the player to be able to select which actions they wanted to do. The rest of the code was simply using if statements to switch between different states, which changed the sprites you see on the screen as you play. Because of the time limit, the code ended up being quite messy, so I had to clean up a few bugs that were messing with the order of the events. I had planned to randomize the events and allow the player to use any action at any point, which would affect whatever state their little tree was in at the moment. But with 2 hours done and a few more tasks to be completed, I had to simplify things even more in order to finish the game within the 3 hours. So all of those things ended up being cut too. In the end, the result is the tiniest game. You can complete it in about 30 seconds. It ended up being way smaller than I planned, but I did manage to make a game in 3 hours, and I'm actually pretty happy with how it turned out. If you're looking for something to do in the next 30 seconds, you can play the game for yourself. The link's in the description. Consider subscribing if you want to see more devlogs and game design stuff. Till next time.